how would you two describe your polar opposites?
Okay, so like if a grizzly bear has brown hair, right, which I do,
Okay.
and a polar bear has white hair.
Okay.
My polar opposite is just me with white hair.
I guess you could say that of anyone with brown hair, huh, Kyle?
Wow, we've really hit on something, Emily.
Wait, so a polar bear is a grizzly bear's polar opposite?
Well,
okay,
it's a polar. It's a polar opposite.
Kind of missing the opposite part. More like polar companion.
Polar brethren.
Isn't that the same thing?
Emily, what's your polar opposite by that same logic?
Oh, I mean, she's mighty and to be feared, like a polar bear.
That's your polar opposite?
Yeah, I'm not mighty or to be feared.
Welcome to Butter No Parsnips. Every week on Butter No Parsnips, your hosts Emily Moyers and Kyle Imperator take you on an adventure through the weird, wacky, wonderful, and sometimes even wicked world of one wayside word. Strange characters, delightful bits, and general joyousness abound. Join them as they test each other's etymological expertise.
Wait a second. Kyle Imperator? Emily Moyers? Mm-hmm. What are you doing down here in this, my dungeon, on this, an episode of Butter No Parsnips with also me, Seth Glicksman?
That's all the points.
Yeah, we were just checking on the growth of your beard. It seems to be looking pretty svelte.
We've been slipping hair growth hormones into your Coke milk.
Kilk.
I am very glad that you noticed. Yes, it does seem as though I'm getting older. I think this place must be in the doggosphere, where everything ages like a dog. Yes. 7 years to every human's one, but also with a bunch of weird, inexplicable lumps that no one likes to look at or touch. Yet every time the vet offers to remove them, all of a sudden it's out of our budget. Okay? No, I'm sure you're not down here to talk about that or to check on the progress of that can of alphabet soup you threw down the stairwell with a note that said, "Make it last." Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. You're here in search of something from that wickedly wordy tome. The Lexiconicon! Yes! It's back! The Lexiconicon! Restored to its rightfully nefarious and insidious and lugubrious and perfidious and ludibrious. Listen, the book is back. I'm still starving to death in a dungeon. Okay?
Yes, steadily going crazy.
It's difficult to balance these two things.
Yeah.
But I have been gaining some energy from this longiloquent lexicography. And if it is true that you're not just here to use the executive bathroom that I had installed down here with the Butter No Parsnips Patreon money, then you're seeking some of that energy yourself.
So, like, I just want to say, like, we started this podcast, and Seth was Seth, right?
Yeah,
and now
still
he's
am, baby.
Different. Now he's a very different person.
He's a Maiar.
But no, let us gaze
He's
upon the pages.
trying to take us on a quest.
A most unexpected journey, even.
Yeah.
But let us gaze upon the pages of the Lexiconicon, the verbose volume of vast verbal visions, and from it lap up the lyrical lingual lifeblood of our very podcast. Emily.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
Tonight, we summon a word. Ooh, oh, I'm conjuring. Oh, the Lexiconicon. Speak to me, Lexiconicon. Speak.
Every time we do a Lexiconicon episode, there's less and less explanation of why it's like this. And there's people who this is their first one.
From the Animaniacs to the Marx Brothers, this word remarks on the others. Up is down. Yesterday, tomorrow. Your word today is Bizarro. Your word is Bizarro. Bizarro. Yes, rabba.
The word is Bizarro.
What can you tell me about Bizarro? You tell me. Got nothing over here. A la carte today.
I feel like I've only heard it in the context of Bizarro world. Isn't that a thing?
So I always assumed, and perhaps I'm wrong for assuming, you know what they say about assuming. It makes a crass person out of some people in the room.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think you're welcome. I mean, when I think of Bizarro, I think of the Superman villain. I kind of just assumed that's where it came from because he is Superman's opposite and comes from another world. So
yeah, I always assumed that Bizarro was just like a fun play on the word bizarre, and now I'm wondering if that is not the case.
The Lexiconicon loves to sow doubt. It's one of its many flaws.
Yeah.
But both of you seem to have tapped at the heart of Bizarro already, and I can tell this because the Lexiconicon keeps coyly laughing behind a knowing smile. Bizarro obviously takes its roots in the word bizarre, defined by the OED in the most OED way possible as at variance with the recognized ideas of taste, departing from ordinary style or usage, eccentric, extravagant, whimsical, strange, odd, fantastic. Just in a string, just all of those words.
Yeah.
Now, do either of you have any beats on Bizarre's etymology, though?
I feel like the double R is making me think French.
Double R and the Z, not necessarily the Z, but the Z sound, is French.
Sure.
The BI feels Latin if it's two, But I'd like to throw in Arabic because I feel like sometimes
it goes there.
It goes
sometimes
there,
it goes there. It's true. Sometimes I go there.
Not true.
When you're astral projecting.
Well, Kyle forgets that I was the head of the State Department in the 90s, so.
I do forget that. You
do forget
deliberately.
It was weird because it was like you took over because the person before you resigned, and then Bill Clinton became president and he forgot to pick somebody, and so you were just there.
Which was wild to me, but you know what? It led to a lot of fun adventures between him and I.
Yeah. You both went?
Oh, yeah. We had done things and he had forgotten I was the head of the State Department.
I thought you were just my pal. What a bizarro world this is.
Well, listen, uninterestingly, the word first appears in English in 1640s and stems from the French bizarre. Spelled the same way and largely meaning the same thing. However, the French bizarre is indeed a bit bizarre itself.
Oh.
I will caveat this section with the fact that wordorigins.org very smugly claims that bizarre has a mundane etymology, but I'll leave you, my captive audience, to decide. Put very simply, the French bizarre comes from the Italian bizzarro, two Z's. Indeed, that is as far as wordorigins.org goes, and many other sources claim that to go much further than that would be pure speculation. Here's what I find weird, though. The Italian bizzarro, pre-1600s, meant angry or ill-tempered. This sense is seen as early as 1321 in Dante's Inferno as il fiorentino spirito bizzarro, meaning the spirit of the wrathful Florentine, referring to Filippo Argenti, and using bizzarro to mean wrathful.
Wow.
But hold on your butts, because some other sources point to the Spanish bizarro, one Z.
Oh.
Which meant, and still to this day, means valiant or gallant, soldier-like. But some suggest that the Spanish bizarro, one Z, also goes back to the Italian, implying a relationship between anger and irascibility and soldier-like.
Yeah, I could see that.
You can see that? You're stronger than I am.
Yeah,
well, but I feel like there's a fine line between like angry seen in a negative light and like mighty seen in a positive light, like a mighty warrior,
Emily, you're so good. You're so good. Kyle, bad Kyle. Bad. Emily, good. This is just mental notes I'm taking.
Yeah,
Emily, good.
he's got
bad.
He's got to really cement these associations because he'll lose track.
And he's part of Santa's workforce, so if he doesn't keep this information at the tip of his tongue, you know.
I keep a matrix board, which is just 2 thumbtacks, and it's a string going back and forth between Kyle and Emily. Now, for a long time, so long that vocabulary.com still makes this claim, it was held with equal weight that the French bizarre could have come from the Basque bizarre, B-I-Z-A-R, meaning a beard.
Oh.
The weirdest thing of all.
Well, so that's generally why it's been, cast to the side, because apparently this theory was rested in the idea that Spaniard soldiers left, quote, a strange impression on the French because they had beards.
Crazy.
But regardless of vocabulary.com's independent failure, most etymologists condemn this connection as superficial.
I'm sure the French had beards at that point in time.
Well, it had to do with the soldiers in particular. Their soldiers had beards, which I guess I could see it being a thing where it's just like, our soldiers will not have beards. We must slip and slide.
It will throw off their aerodynamicness. I can picture French with like a little beard that comes to a point and then curly cues.
See, I'm picturing the Jafar beard.
Yeah, like the sharp, like little pointy thing. Although I think that might be a Spanish beard.
Sure.
Well,
No,
I mean, it's all
cultures never mix in the history of time. Don't even
especially
suggest
when it comes to beards.
But this is like during war and like when the Spaniards and the French were like interacting with each other. Yeah. But most etymologists condemn this connection as superficial. But no matter how much research I did, it seems everyone likes to simply summarize the meaning of bizarre, drifting from angry to strange, as happening.
All right.
Not how or why, just simply that it did.
It did.
The best that I could get in this is that there are some who point to the idea that Emily was suggesting, which is this idea of hot-temperedness equating to a sense of unpredictability, which could then perhaps be reframed to mean a more general strangeness. Like, that's how that shift happened over time, because even in French, it originally meant angry, but then that shifted. Okay. And frankly, wordorigins.org, you might say that's simple, but I'm an idiot, so just remember that words hurt sometimes. But now, you both might also be thinking, and perhaps this is where you had your Arabic roots, Kyle, of bizarre, B-A-Z-A-A-R.
Yeah.
As in a marketplace.
There's no way there's a relation.
There's absolutely no relation. And just know that if there were, that section would have been a lot shorter because it just goes back to Persian roots. And that goes back a long, long, long time. But honestly, this word custody battle almost made us forget what really matters here. And that's that, hey, this is not your fault. Sometimes the Spanish and the French are going to fight. And also the Italians. And for some reason, also the Basque. It happens all the time.
All the time.
And we're getting you signed up for a group that meets during school with other kids who are going through the same thing. And you know what you're going to learn there?
What?
That the word is bizarro, not bizarre. And honestly, in terms of this episode, we're hardly where we need to be.
You're right.
And I'm getting a vision now. That's a thing I do. I get visions. I admit it's probably less of a magic thing and more of a dungeon without light thing, but the Lexiconicon states, it says here, odd outcome out of odd outro, out with one and on you go. What could it mean?
I don't know, but I'm going to shake the magic 8 ball again because I didn't like that one.
Oh, it says try again later.
Oh, all right. I guess I'll try again later. Bye, guys.
Can I try? I'm going to shake it.
Shake it again.
Yeah, what does it say when I
shake it? It's saying
ASAP,
as per the last answer I gave you.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's fair.
So, odd outcome out of odd outro, out with one and on you go. What could it mean?
The O being the odd outro?
Yes, that's it. That's it. It's the O, that O ending. Odd outcome out of an odd outro. And name one? Maybe maybe words with this weird outro?
Okay, so you want to give so we're going to give you words that are just appended with an O. Well, there's presto and
Change-o.
breast.
Emily got it.
What?
Change-o is a great example, Emily.
Is
Presto,
it?
not so much.
Well, change-o isn't a word.
Exactly. Some other words like bizarro might be kiddo, neato, sicko, klepto, nympho, slow-mo, wino, weirdo, typo, and maybe even wacko jacko.
So
Klepto's a stretch.
Oh,
well,
no, it's
but
not.
that's what I was thinking, because some of those I think of as clipping, and some of those I think of as adding an O.
Emily is right on pace, right on pace, as far as I can tell. I mean, I don't know any more than you guys do. You two, it is my great honor to introduce you to the, quote, O-word taxonomy, as written about in tandem by linguists and presumably fellow incarcerated word wizards Mikhail Parkvall and Yanis Androutsopoulos. So, from that brief list, Emily, you've already pointed at differences between some of the words. Can you think of any other differences, like maybe what separates kiddo from typo, or maybe even better, wino from jacko?
Well, Jacko, I've never heard in my life. So that one, that's different in that regard.
I mean, I've heard wacko jacko.
I've
never heard jacko separately.
Well, in the context of wacko jacko.
There's
I've
also
never
jacko
heard of that.
lantern.
That's entirely different.
It is.
Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up. So, like, are you talking about, like, how sometimes the O is replacing a vowel, a silent vowel, and sometimes it's just being appended to the end of a full word?
Wow, Kyle. Yeah, you're really getting close there. Not quite exactly, but you have the themes down. In the taxonomy, Parkvall and Androutsopoulos parse out 4 kinds of O words, and you're going to love this. Apocoped, paragogy, agentive, and parasitical. Any beats on these?
Some of these I can parse out. Agentive, I would assume, is making an agent out of like a verb.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Apocopy is a Pokemon.
What was the last one that you said? Paracetamol?
Paracetamol
Parasitical.
or parasitical.
Parasitical. Like parasite?
You got it. Yeah, absolutely. So, apocopy, spelled A-P-O-C-O-P-E, means the loss or omission of a sound or sounds at the end of a word. And that's something you see in slow-mo, where the O's are used essentially to abbreviate slow motion. Caveat here, the authors mention that it's a little tough to distinguish between this concept and general clipping, which is the sort of thing you see with typo, short for typographical error, and klepto and nympho, clipping from the maniacal suffix. But they also posit that this approach to words probably becomes more popular because of the pervasiveness of the rest of the O words. So essentially, while these are clippings, we see more clippings of this variety because of these other words that we're going to get into.
Okay.
A note that I'll add personally is that I think the less pure the etymological clipping, the more grounds you have to claim apocopy. So like demonstration is clipped to demo, but demonstrate comes from the Latin demonstrare, from de for entirely and monstrare for to point out or to show. So it's clipping somewhere etymologically unnatural with demo.
But like kleptomania is like klepto is one root and mania is another.
Right. So this would qualify promo from promotional, or info from information, or even nepo from nepotism as being more apocopes than clippings. Undeniably, though, a word like boho, short for bohemian, is decidedly apocopy.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean that those other words like typo are not apocopy. It just is a little grayer.
Like you, this episode.
Aw.
A little grayer.
It's true, and more wizened.
When I say grayer, I mean more like a gray alien.
I've never seen that word used that way. But wait, there's more. The second kind of O word they list is paragogy. Paragoge. This is the opposite of apocopy, the addition of a sound or syllable to the end of a word. These seem to be generally less common in English, but something we see at play in that earlier example, wacko jacko, used to refer to Michael Jackson. In this instance, you're replacing son and adding the O sound in Jackson. Mind you, they surveyed a bunch of other languages here, and so there are plenty of these cases elsewhere.
Full name Waxon Jackson is
The full name Waxon
what
Jackson.
we're missing out there. Yeah.
The next kind of O word is the agentive O suffixation. And Emily, you were pretty much right on the money. Agentive from agent, because in this instance, the O is playing a specific semantic role. Now, can you think of any other agentive suffixes?
So I just want to make sure I understand right. Agentive, it does mean making a noun out of a verb, like the person doing the verb.
Absolutely.
So like ER.
You got it. Exactly. Worker, writer, ER. OR, actor, mentor. STER, trickster, hipster. Or even airy, as in missionary or secretary. All of these are agentive suffixes which serve to inform you that this is a person who is or does a thing. So these O words are like weirdo, sicko, cheapo, even fatso or nutso. In this instance, the words are often altering an adjective to become a word meaning one who is X. A weirdo is one who is weird. A sicko is one who is sick. But also, a wino, one who drinks a lot of wine. And now finally, let's get to that curious one, the parasitical O. Interestingly, even though it's the curious one, it is one of the more common ones. These are O additions which don't seem to really add anything other than an O. And there are plenty of these because there's a long-held tradition of doing this sort of thing in the English language, which the OED does cover the history of in depth, but in this conversation, I'm following the linguistic thread. Mm-hmm. Some examples include the earlier kiddo, or daddy-o, neato, friendo, bucko, doggo, yummo, and in British English, you have the alternative jacko as an elongation of jack.
Wow.
Those are all good.
Yeah.
Now, as I pointed out earlier, there are a lot of gray areas. Some words can sort of occupy a weird middle ground where you're both removing sounds and syllables and adding sounds and syllables, like boho, for instance, adds O, but removes emian. And as far as I can tell, the logic there is just absolute values. You remove 3 syllables, you added 1, net loss of 2, you got apocopy. like they just kind of balance it out that way. But at the same time, these are 2 linguists who basically did this as a jaunt. They said, let's just like collect up a bunch exercise. Of these. Exactly.
Yeah.
But we still haven't defined Bizarro. So let me ask you guys, Bizarro, where does it land? Is it apocopy, paragogy, agentive, parasitical?
I would think parasitical, because I don't think it's adding anything, and it's not clipping anything.
No, but it is agentive because it's describing something that is acting bizarre. No? Maybe not a person necessarily.
Well, but like Bizarro is still an adjective. Like, you don't say a person is a Bizarro.
Yeah, but fatso. That's not somebody who fats is.
But you say someone is a fatso.
Yeah.
You don't say someone is a Bizarro. You say someone is bizarre. It's still an adjective.
It's not being used as a noun.
Right?
Yeah, no, you got it, yeah.
So then, yeah, it's got to be the last one, unless it's a 5th secret option.
Oh, that would have been fun. I wish that happened. This episode sucks. Listen, let me be the first to admit fault here. Your fault, but fault nevertheless. You simply just can't say yet. Because you don't have all the information. Because I'm intentionally withholding it. Because that's how we keep listener retention up.
Yeah, I was going to say, this is like a murder mystery episode. Yeah. They don't tell you all the clues until they reveal who the killer is.
Exactly.
I forgot that Santa has a quota now for minutes listened per episode.
Listen, podcasting is the future, and you'd bet your bottom dollar Santa's got one. Okay. But hey, let's finally get to it. The part that Kyle, your father, who we know listens, is not only waiting for, but actually helped me to research. You both said it. You both knew it. It's Bizarro. Introduced in 1958 during the Silver Age of comic books in Superboy number 68, Bizarro is a DC comic supervillain presented as the mirror image of our beloved Superman. Now, what do you two know about Bizarro? Obviously, Emily, not much.
Nothing. I didn't say it. You said we both said it. I didn't say it.
Well, you
Unless
said
that's what Bizarro World is from.
It sure is.
Okay,
Yeah,
I've just heard
that's
it.
what I figured
I
out.
know nothing about it.
That's terrific. Literally, you have no idea how great that is. Now, Kyle, what do you know?
I think he's got a backwards S on his chest.
So
right?
sometimes he's depicted with a backwards S, sometimes it's a backwards B.
That's dumb, but sure, fine. He looks like he's made of crystal for some reason.
Yep.
Like that's the opposite of skin.
Yeah, you got it. Do you know anything else?
He talks bad.
Hitting all the marks. Yeah.
He talks like, I don't know, an ape.
Terrific. Interestingly, much like the origins of the word bizarre, the origins of Bizarro are also a bit of a custody battle. Both comic writers Otto Binder and Alvin Schwartz claim to their dying breath to be the original creators of the character because they both debuted their own Bizarros in the same year.
Wow.
Schwartz, however, started his storyline in episode 105, The Battle of Bizarro, which released from August to December in newspapers of 1958, while Binder released his Superboy number 68 in October of that same year. So there's this weird possibility where Bizarro in that storyline didn't show up until after Superboy showed up. It's a very strange thing, and they both argued over this.
Bizarro.
Interestingly, they also had the same manager, so like it's weird that they.
Dude.
It's weird. It's definitely weird.
Guy. Either you're a bad manager or you're a cruel manager.
I've got an idea. Weirdly enough, they in both storylines result from a duplication ray mishap. Most notably, though, Otto Binder was writing for Superboy, introducing Bizarro for the first and only time as a teenager.
Oh, interesting.
Schwartz, however, introduced his Bizarro in his adult form and also incorporated many of the mainstays of Bizarro's characterization. So who is Bizarro? Kyle, you tapped on a bunch of things. Binder claims to have taken inspiration from Frankenstein's monster, and Schwartz seems to have taken inspiration from Carl Jung's idea of the shadow, that is, what's referred to as the blind spot of the psyche. What do we get from this? We get a mirror version of Superman, ugly, pallid, disheveled, and most of all, dumb. As per a conversation with Kyle's father, it seems more often than not that Bizarro's presence in any given comic is more likely to be a device of a larger plot than it is a major stakeholder in any advancement of good and evil. And beyond that, as with most comic book characters, he's really just a template for whichever writer decides to get their paws on him. The most consistent thing about him, though, is, Kyle, his backwards speech.
Oh, yeah.
This is his way of saying things incorrectly and sometimes literally in the opposite sense. So if he were saving someone's life, he might say, "Me am kill you." And if he wanted to boast about how great he is, he might say, "Me am terrible." Heath Larson, who published his Bizarro #1 series in 2015, remarked on the general jazz at play when it comes to this element of characterizing Bizarro. For his comedic take on the character, which puts Bizarro on a road trip with Superman pal Jimmy Olsen, Larson stated, "It's sort of like trying to speak 3 languages at once. You want to do some verbal acrobatics and get some good jokes in there." A good, for instance, was his use of bourrée as a portmanteau of boo and hooray, which is just a great and usable word,
It's so usable.
It's like a great word to use when your boss rolls out like a new workflow that sucks.
Bourrée.
Like in my head, I'm just like, that's a great way for everybody to respond. Oh, bourrée. He goes on to say, "You've got to navigate what the funniest way for him to talk is. If he were to refer to Jimmy as his best enemy, that's not as funny as calling him his worstest friend. And it's not funny when you leave voicemails in the middle of the night saying the same thing, Kyle."
Listen, I can't do it during the day. You'll pick up.
That's true. That's fair. You know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes
You
I
didn't
gotta,
really think it
I gotta
through.
get out of my own shoes. You know?
Yeah, seriously.
Take a
Sometimes it
walk.
really feels like you are the worstest friend.
Now, Emily, from Bizarro comes the literal world of Bizarros.
Yeah.
Hetere, literally Earth backwards, is Bizarro's home planet.
Yeah, wait. So I'm jumping.
No, go for it. Get in here. Get in
I was
here.
gonna say there's like Bizarro versions of like everybody,
Yes. Yeah. Full of Bizarro versions of everyone on Earth, all with their own Bizarro customs. Garbage collectors bring garbage to your house. Alarm clocks are used to sleep. And even the planet itself is a literal cube. But that only happened after Superman visited. They locked him up for being too normal, and he plea-dealed, saying, "I'll turn your planet into a cube if you let me go." And they said, "Okay."
Wait, why? It's just so they could be more bizarre?
Literally, yes.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Now, what's crazy, though, is that Emily, you did not know all of this before today. And you still might know and even use the word bizarro to refer to something totally out of whack, and specifically in the sense that is used in the comics, like Bizarro World. You might say, he's a bizarro dude. You might say, I'm a bizarro dude. But that doesn't mean I can't hang. That doesn't mean...
Well, it does when it's you talking, Seth.
My beard's falling off. Now, in these instances, it's an adjective, which distinguishes it from that prior agentive case, because you are not a bizarro, like you guys were saying. You are not one who is bizarre, but a bizarro something. So it really lands somewhere between the paragogic and parasitical O cases, where there is an added syllable, but while it only appears to modify bizarre morphologically, it also points at something separate from bizarre semantically. A bizarre room feels passively strange, whereas a bizarro room feels actively strange.
Yeah.
And this use of bizarro may have risen in prominence not just through the proliferation of comic book culture, but also through the fans of those comic books in the likes of Jerry Seinfeld and Larry David, who wrote an episode of Seinfeld called The Bizarro Jerry, where Elaine dates Kevin, Jerry's polar opposite, who's accompanied by Bizarro's George Kramer and even Newman in the form of Vargas, with whom Kevin shares an excellent rapport.
I remember that. That's a good episode.
It's a great episode. And hey, that's it. That's Bizarro. He's just a nifty supervillain. What do you two say to grabbing some Kilk and getting out of here?
What's the Bizarro version of Kilk?
Wait, look there. It's vile. No, it's crass. No, surreal, horrific, violent, vulgar, immature, terrifying, absurdist. Why? It's Bizarro fiction.
Oh my.
And
It's wearing a thong.
And of course it is, because it's actually what we're here for. You two thought the Lexiconicon was going to lead to a DC Comics supervillain? I mean, of all of them, Bizarro would definitely be it, but come on. It's the Lexiconicon, an infinite labyrinth of elusive lexical life lore, and honestly, is way more into indie comics anyway. But have either of you ever heard of Bizarro fiction?
As a phrase, it rings a bell, but I can't connect it to anything.
Bizarro fiction is an entire genre of fiction dedicated to those just listed qualities, and therefore is the crossroads of everything I love. And now, for a disclaimer. I'm going to be using some offensive language soon. For our public listeners, I will do you the service of bleeping it out, but Patreon will receive this section in the raw. Also, trigger warning. Some of the content I'm about to cover is lewd, lascivious, gross, classless, and simply upsetting. If you're not up for it, consider this episode over. So yes, Bizarro fiction. On his website, Bizarro author Carlton Mellick III states the 7 points of Bizarro. 1. Bizarro, simply put, is the genre of the weird. 2. Bizarro is literature's equivalent to the cult section at the video store. 3. Like cult movies, Bizarro is sometimes surreal, sometimes avant-garde, sometimes goofy, sometimes bloody, sometimes borderline pornographic, and almost always out there. 4. Bizarro strives not only to be strange, but fascinating, thought-provoking, and above all, fun to read. 5. Bizarro often contains a certain cartoon logic that, when applied to the real world, creates an unstable universe where the bizarre becomes the norm and absurdities are made flesh. 6. Bizarro was created by a group of small press publishers in response to the increasing demand for good, weird fiction and the increasing number of authors who specialize in it. And 7. Bizarro is like Franz Kafka meets John Waters, Dr. Seuss of the post-apocalypse, Takashi Miike meets William S. Burroughs, Alice in Wonderland for adults, Japanese animation directed by David Lynch.
Number 6 wasn't a rule, it was just a historical note.
They are the points of Bizarro, not the rules.
Okay. But still, that's just like...
It's like a marker. Like, you know it is Bizarro fiction if it came from that historical.
Absolutely. Emily, you are knocking this episode out of the park. Now, in 2001, Carlton Mellick III published his first novel, Satan Burger. Since then, it has become one of the most prominent novels in Bizarro fiction, and Mellick himself one of the most prominent Bizarro authors. Some titles in the Bizarro tradition include The Baby Jesus Butt Plug, The Haunted Vagina, and Every Time We Meet at the Dairy Queen, Your Whole Face Explodes, all by Carlton Mellick III. Or The Pickled Apocalypse of Pancake Island, and Die, You Donut Bastards by Cameron Pierce. Or House of Houses and Space Walrus by Kevin L. Donaghy. Or Snap Crackle F*** You by Simon Ore Molina. Or Rampaging F***ers of Everything on the Crazy Planet of the Vomit Atmosphere by Michael Hansen. And even a Choose Your Own Mind Fest series by a few of these Bizarro authors. I'll admit, I haven't been able to dive into these titles as much as I would have truly liked. I was hoping maybe doing this episode would inspire me a bit, but it turns out that no matter how much incentive I give myself, I will disappoint me. Kyle, you were going to say something.
It's just all very camp. It feels.
Camp is, well, and that's where you go back to that John Waters element. Where like there's a leaning in to this sort of trashiness, but then sort of putting it on a pedestal where it's like, yes, this is trash, but also this is high trash. You know?
I was about to compare it to Flarf, but I feel like Flarf doesn't have that elevation.
Emily, you got my next line. Now, Mellick stated himself, it's kind of a hybrid of surrealism, sci-fi, erotica, absurdism, and horror, but I will be the first, and I guess now the second, to nip this in the bud and say, it is not Flarf. While qualitatively someone may look at a title like The Baby Jesus Butt Plug or The Haunted Vagina and think, okay, well, you must be going for trash there, the works are written with intention. Not to say that they take themselves too seriously, it's just they're not trying to offend anyone by the mere act of being offensive, nor are they doing so accidentally by random arrangement. The offensive nature of the works really only exists here in our world, but in themselves, everything is a given. And I think I love it because they're not wasting their time trying to justify these realities to anybody, like with horror or sci-fi. For those, there's an implied lore, and often the authors make it their goal to explain to you exactly why we got to where we got. The house is built on a graveyard. The AI gains sentience. The demon is from hell. The aliens need our resources, etc., etc. They want you grounded somewhere. Bizarro doesn't care. In The Haunted Vagina, a guy discovers his girlfriend's vagina is haunted. That's it. It's something that comes up incidentally during sex, and then she requests that he ventures inside of her to find out what's going on there. And the rest of the book is about an affair that he has with a woman that lives in the ghost world of his girlfriend. Literally, as far as an explanation goes, the main character states, I'm pretty sure that the world was created so long ago that nobody really knows the truth anymore. And then, spoiler, he marries the ghost girl inside of his girlfriend. So what starts as a supernatural erotic body horror ends with poignant romance drama.
I feel like
Kyle's not sold on this genre.
No, I'm totally into it, honestly. It feels just like, I don't know, I'm starting to think of Funky Forest is what I'm starting to think of.
I would say Funky Forest is way
Osmosis
more...
Jones.
Not Osmosis Jones.
I don't know. I feel like there's something there. There's the link.
That episode of Jimmy Neutron where they go fight the germs.
Now, I will also add that there are horror elements. I mean, like, there comes a point where a skeleton attempts to escape the realm and slowly grows organs and flesh while our human protagonists try to kill it mid-vaginal escape. But even that is left to be accepted for what it is by the reader. Mellick's Baby Jesus butt plug starts with the line, "We adopted a baby Jesus a few months ago, and it is already adapted to our assholes." And it explores this dystopia obsessed with fetish subcultures to the point that they clone these Jesuses for sexual pleasure, but then the Jesuses start multiplying and force an apocalyptic event. Not once, though, do you feel like the author is asking you to believe him. You're cast into this insanity, and you're either in it for the ride, or you put the book down.
It's like reading fan fiction in the middle of, like without any context to what the lore is.
Honestly, that's not too bad.
But not being expected to know the lore.
Right.
Like, whereas in fan fiction, like, you need to know it to be a part of it.
That's pretty good, Kyle. And honestly taps into something we'll talk about in a little bit. That's pretty good. Okay. Hang on to that. Now, on these absurdist and surrealist elements, their devices, I think, to discern Bizarro from surrealism and absurdism. Toward the end of The Haunted Vagina, you're not still in the throes of what is going on. You're literally wondering, wow, I wonder who he's going to choose. His real-life girlfriend cheats on him while he's in her ghost realm, and he has a whole crisis about it on a truly human level. At that point, the absurdism and the surrealism is more of a setting than it is a plot device or a driving element. It's like the genre is constantly trying to throw you off balance, and by proceeding, you're sort of gaining sea legs to endure the rest of the story as it's told. Whereby I think in more pure surrealism or more pure absurdism, it establishes what it is to you right off the bat. It lets you know, hey, you're not really going to get this, you're not supposed to, but Bizarro has this kind of cool to it that says, maybe you'll get this, maybe you won't, maybe you're not supposed to, maybe you are, I don't really care, but enjoy it.
Yeah. Now,
all that said, Mellick worked with a small press named Eraserhead Press after, of course, our Lord and Savior David Lynch's seminal work, Eraserhead. This became and remains the central hub of all things Bizarro, although I'll add the perhaps devastating note that their website has not posted anything new since 2023, but it is still functional. And unlike our friend Flarf, this movement still thrives. There is an annual BizarroCon where Bizarro fiction books are selected for the Wonderland Book Award, where Carlton Mellick himself still remains in the pool of nominated authors. According to Mellick's site, he's writing at a pace of 3 to 4 books a year, and believably so, because a lot of these books function more as novellas. Yeah. I found a bunch, and that's why I actually have as much knowledge about the plots that I do, because you can kind of get through them pretty fast. Yeah. But I think the reason I find Bizarro so enticing, and really the reason the word was summoned in the first place, is because early on when people were trying to suss out the genre, it was being deemed the new absurd, or irreal, IRREAL, as a contrast to surreal. Of course, that's enough for me, but there's something more to it. I think as we head into darker times I don't think anyone living even 15 years ago could have predicted, work that challenges that darkness gains significant currency. Not just as a challenge to the culture of repression or oppression we're sinking into, but also as a challenge to one's whimsy. Is it disgusting? Yes. Is it offensive? Yes. Is it smutty, trashy, gory? Yes, 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 all of it. But it is all of those things in a way that reminds you that there is still escape from that societal oppression. It is unadulterated imagination splashed against the page with no fear of the reader. It is rebellion in the form of unfettered thought. And readers, every now and then, and perhaps especially now, need to be reminded that escape is not just in going somewhere comfortable, but it can also be in having your expectations subverted. When the surrealists and Dadaists rose to prominence post-World War I, they very intentionally set out to challenge the status quo. But the contrast here exists in the difference between surreal and that earlier irreal. Folks were looking for a word which set Bizarro apart from surrealism because just like bizarre and Bizarro, there's a subtle difference, but it's an important one. Surreal is etymologically super real. above what's real. There were large relationships between the surrealism movement and Freudianism, believing surrealism tapped into the unconscious mind. But irreal means not real. There's no admission of a relationship between the world and what's in these books. There's no belief that it represents some carnal knowledge or wicked desires. It is a rebellion against reality, whereas I think surrealism and even absurdism admits to that reality. It is the fiction of the weird, not of dreams or the mind or any intelligentsia dog whistle. So, if the times we live in are going to continue to get darker, it's important to have people writing about an impossible weird, a bizarro weird, because that weirdness reminds us that we can reject reality. We can rebel against what's universally accepted. We can be bizarro.
Wow, it's sad that we're gonna have to put you to death. Death penalty.
Isn't this dungeon enough?
No, this was just where we put you.
This is just...
This wasn't a punishment or anything.
We forgot we put you down here. We keep coming down here for Kilk, and you're here.
I dropped that bowl of alphabet soup.
With the note that said make it last.
That was for somebody else.
What do you think, Emily?
I don't know if the genre will be for me in reading it, but I agree with your case for its existence.
Wow, how diplomatic.
And I'm announcing my candidacy.
Yeah, I mean, the point that you made about instead of it being comfortable, its uncomfortability is what it, right? You were saying something like that?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, you got it.
Like, that's why I like horror, is because it can be surprising. And sometimes it's like, oh, that's kind of ridiculous, but I have to believe it, and it's terrifying.
Yeah.
But I'm safe because I'm watching it, and it's not actually happening to me.
Right.
And so there's something about, I can see the appeal in bizarro fiction in that sense.
No, you absolutely nailed it, though. Like that, it is exactly that feeling you get when you're watching horror, where it's like, it's almost contained surprises. Where if everything in the world is weird, and weird in crazy ways, you need to have somewhere where it's weirder, where what's happening could never happen,
Yeah.
There's comfort in that.
And I feel like that speaks to the use of the word bizarro too, like in conversation. I feel like the context when I've heard that word used is when someone is experiencing a situation that is unpleasantly strange. They're like, what am I in bizarro world?
Right.
So if
sets
you feel
you
like
up as the other, not the world that you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really good, Emily. You had more though.
No, you finished my thought, so.
Oh my God. We forget how close this dungeon brings us. Let me close this out. Mellick starts his first novel, Satanburger, with a note from the author, which reads, "The world becomes clearer and clearer the older we become. Much less mysterious/exciting, and all of its appeal we experienced during childhood turns logical. And logic is a dirty and boring word. This story is from the viewpoint of the rebel, who I am still deeply in love with, who refuses to accept the beliefs, the logic, that have been issued to him like a uniform. And with that, I say, would you like to play a game?"
Absolutely.
Yes, please.
Today's game is the Bizarro of Tomorrow's Yesterday. That is today. Because there's just so much of it, I needed to make a quick, simple game that highlighted some of the other Bizarro works of fiction. And I'm going to do that by following a sort of Mad Lib style, where I will read out the title of Bizarro book, leaving out one word. I'll tell you what the semantic role of that missing word is, i.e. verb, noun, etc. And you will both lock in an answer. You don't really stand a chance to get them, but I'll give points for nearness. And the idea is really just to hear these plots. Ready?
Yeah, sure.
Number 1. Things Were Easier Before You Became a Giant F***ing Blank by Matthew A. Clark. You're looking for an animal.
Pterodactyl.
Oh, pterodactyl's good. I'm thinking, marmot.
See, I was thinking of whether it would be funnier to say a small animal, and I like that.
This one's a tough one. I think I have to give it to Kyle.
Nice.
The answer is mantis.
Oh.
Things were easier before you became a giant mantis by Matthew A. Clark. The description reads as such. When Jacob Obie's girlfriend and long-term best friend, Millie, starts to become a mantis, he finds himself questioning everything he's been raised to believe in, unsure of where his loyalties lie. It would be easy to treat her like any other manti person, regular beatings, chase her out of town, eventually kill her. But is that really what he wants? Or is he willing to turn his back on everyone and everything that he's ever known in order to spend the rest of his life with her, facing the wrath and retribution of the clan? Good job! I'm going with Kyle's because it started with an M, although I was tempted to go with yours, Emily, because something about mantis and pterodactyl is more related to me than mantis and Marmot.
I mean, they make the same noise and file the same taxes.
You said file the same taxes?
Yeah.
I don't know what that means at all. I love that. All right, next one. Mm-hmm. Don't smell the flowers. They want to steal your blank by Duncan P. Bradshaw. You're looking for a thing, a noun.
Singular?
No.
Or like
plural.
a mass noun?
Plural. It's just plural.
Just plural.
Inner tubes.
Oh, I would say like innard tubes. Like intestines.
Wow. Emily gets closest with this one. It's Don't smell the flowers. They want to steal your bones.
Oh.
And this one I have to give you the full description of, unfortunately, because it's really good. The sleepy village of Charlton is under assault, not from crazies, zombies, or radioactively enhanced mutants, but from locally grown flowers. These devilish orchids lure people in with their favorite smell before rendering them unconscious just so they can pilfer a piece of the victim's skeleton. As doctors and paramedics are pushed to the breaking point, it's down to scantily clad Detective Harry Surge to root out who's behind this unconventional attack. To nip this in the bud, Harry is going to have to call in old favors, investigate the history of the village, leave no leaf unturned, and commandeer as many different vehicles as he can get away with, even ones he doesn't know how to spell. Brace yourselves for a peculiar hike through rural England. Bring a packed lunch if you get peckish, but whatever you do, don't smell the flowers, 'cause, you know, they want to steal your bones.
Yeah.
Damn, I'm good. Never thought I'd be able to get the title into the synopsis. 10 points to me, none to you. You've got a mountain to climb now, loser.
So funny.
Hilarious.
Finally, your last book, as a treat. Blank Quake by Jeff Burke. And you're looking for a celebrity surname, and I'll tell you that it was published in 2009.
I've got a really fun one, but I don't think it's the answer, so I don't want to say it. But I'll say it later. But
Okay.
I want to come up with but honestly, my first answer that I thought was Busey Quake.
Hilarious.
I like that. Yeah, I think you should just go with it.
My immediate thought was Cruise.
Like Tom Cruise?
Quake.
Yeah.
That's good.
Terry.
Good. Really good, Emily.
The first one the one that I thought that I was like, oh, this would be funny, but it's not. It was Firthquake.
That's good. I'm going to tell you that, Kyle, with Busey, I think you're closer.
Nice.
Wow. The answer is Shatner Quake by Jeff Burke. After a reality bomb goes off at the first ever ShatnerCon, all of the characters ever played by William Shatner are suddenly sucked into our world. Their mission? Hunt down and destroy the real William Shatner, featuring Captain Kirk, TJ Hooker, Denny Crane, Priceline Shatner, Cartoon Kirk, Rescue 911 Shatner, Singer Shatner, and many more. No costume congoer will be spared in their wave of destruction. No red shirt will make it out alive. And not even the Klingons will be able to stand up to a deranged Captain Kirk with a lightsaber. But these Shatner clones are about to learn a hard lesson. That the real William Shatner doesn't take crap from anybody. Not even himself.
I mean, that's really good.
Isn't that so good?
Like, you tell me you couldn't see that as a film.
I mean, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd be remiss if I did not tell you that there is a sequel titled Shatner Quest, where fans of William Shatner seek out William Shatner and then discover he's become a 100-foot-tall Godzilla-sized monster and is attacking the city of Los Angeles, and then they need to destroy William Shatner. A real moral conundrum there, you could imagine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow.
And another element I didn't manage to squeeze into my tirade earlier is that Bizarro does not shy away from current references, which I think contribute even more to like the sort of novelty of the works. Like, again, it's that same thing of just like, I don't care if you don't know who William Shatner is. That's who the book is about.
Yeah. It builds on its campness.
Yeah. It's
especially with age, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's good. It's good stuff. I love it.
I mean, that's, hey, guys, that's actually Bizarro. That's the world of the word of the weird. That's it.
Like it. I like it.
Yeah, I'm totally into it. I say we write some Bizarro no parsnips fiction.
I mean, you have no idea how passionate I am about the thing that you just said in this moment. Yeah, I have no idea how much my heart is in that because I want that bad. I want it bad.
I mean, you can help. You can help make it happen.
The power is in your hands.
Well, until the next time we choose to unfurl the centerfold of the bawdy Lexiconicon to reveal another surreptitiously seductive subject matter, let's thank our patrons on Patreon. So thank you to Blackbird Brodery,
Monica of Top Music,
Lori M,
Pensive Primate,
Day D,
Rob R,
Jesse M,
Stephen I,
Chris B,
Crocust,
Diane B,
Lane S,
and Sarah D.
Thanks so much to all of you. You help us make what we make.
And remember, you can watch us on YouTube at Butter No Parsnips, and you can find Butter No Parsnips on other social media, on Facebook and Instagram at Butter No Parsnips Podcast, and on TikTok at Butter No Parsnips. And if you like today's episode, consider giving us a 5-star rating or review wherever you heard us.
And if you really like today's episode, consider donating to our Patreon at patreon.com/butternoparsnips. Donating $5 or more gets you exclusive access to Buttered Parsnips, our After Hours podcast, as well as a bunch of other little goodies.
And with that, I've been Kyle Imperator.
I've been Emily Moyers.
And I've been Seth Glixman, and this has been Butter No Parsnips. Butter No Parsnips is produced by Kyle Imperator, Emily Moyers, and myself, Seth Glixman. The main and accompanying themes were composed by Kyle Imperator.